You know that moment when a woman finally stops apologizing for taking up space and decides to go for it? That's the transformation that I help women create. I host the My Villain Era podcast. I'm Victoria, and I share deep, juicy conversations with women who are living the most authentic version of themselves. Let's go. And today, my co host, Sherry Cherapanov, I hope I said that right.
You did great.
Okay. Along with my co-host Cherry, we are going to explore the concept of joy. Welcome, Cherry.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I am so excited to talk about my very favorite topic, joy.
Now, I wanted to have you on to talk about joy because you have some really juicy stuff coming up in relation to joy. You want to just give us like the highlights as to what is brewing with you and why this concept of joy is so important?
Yeah. Let's do it. So, I am creating a community for women who are ready to reclaim their joy, or maybe they're discovering it for the first time. The community is called Magnetic, and it's focused on four frequencies: joy, confidence, purpose, and whimsy. And I think that helping women live their purpose is helping them live in joy. And I think that joy looks like many different things to many different people, but it is such a vital part of living well and living big and living authentically. So, yeah, that's a little bit about Magnetic and what I'm creating, and we have courses in there that are helping women realign with their own joy, rediscover joy that they may have forgotten, rediscover joy that maybe they abandoned for whatever reason. I'm interested, yeah, that's a really interesting
Yeah.
topic. But yeah, I think we've put a lot of barriers and rules up around experiencing joy, and I believe it's our birthright.
Yes. I had such a lovely conversation yesterday with Coach Jackie Cote. And we're talking about women and their expectations. And it's like when you have all this list of expectations on you, like you're going to do this at this point in time in your life. There are like even societal expectations. Like now's the point in time where you start to get married. And I remember like all of these women in my sphere were getting married in their mid 20s, and I'm like I can't even find a guy that I want to spend 2 dates with, you know what I mean? Like why am I going to marry anybody? But again, it's these societal expectations, these norms, and I feel like that totally sucks the joy out of your life because you have no spontaneity, you have no just fun, like, oh, what would be fun today? And so we had such a delicious conversation about this yesterday, that I feel like I've been talking about joy all weekend. But let's talk more about this topic. So I really feel like most people are sleepwalking through life and they haven't, and they're checking off all the boxes, right? And they haven't really thought a whole lot about, am I happy? Like, does this thing bring me any kind of happiness? Is the thing that I'm doing, like, does it light me up and go, makes me feel good, right? Like that kind of meter that you've got going on. I feel like for a lot of people, it's closed off. And in some ways, we've lost the ability to figure out what makes us happy. So yeah, that this topic is so important. And I feel like getting in touch with your joy is so important. So tell me about how joy, and so first of all, why people feel like they have to downplay their joy,
Mm.
how they can get in touch with their joy, because I think that's where a lot of people are starting right now, is that they don't even know what's going to make them happy.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, so a couple of things there. I think why people downplay their joy because we have these limiting beliefs that joy has to be earned, or it has to be, if you didn't work really hard for it, it can't be true joy. Or I was talking with someone a couple of weeks ago and he was like, I used to really experience joy, but then someone told me like, well, I don't get to experience it like that. And he was like, and now I have a lot of shame around just experiencing joy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Like, how many times do we hold ourselves back from sharing something that we're so excited about ourselves or about the world because we know that maybe someone else doesn't have that thing right now. And so we make ourselves smaller because we don't want to upset someone else. Instead of what I believe to be true is when you share your joy, that's a frequency that you are blasting out to the world and it creates more of it. And people are, and maybe it shines a little bit of light on something that someone didn't see previously as something that could be joyful. And there's a little spark that happens for them and it leads them down a new path.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why we don't allow ourselves to experience joy. Another one would be that a lot of us don't really know how to receive. We've really been in this masculine energy, right?
Yes, girl.
And joy is like the pleasure of life, and you just let yourself receive what life wants to give you. Again, joy is our birthright. And so there's sometimes a lot of work that needs to be done around reframing joy, questioning why do we have shame around it, and then what's keeping us from receiving that joy and just surrendering to it. And knowing that like you didn't have to do anything to experience this, just let it happen.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you brought up receiving because isn't that something that just holds us back from creating good things in our lives? It's like I heard someone talk about this. I don't know if it was about a year ago, and he said if you want to receive more, you have to get used to in your body the idea that someone is going to give you something for nothing. So he was like, imagine being handed $1 million check. And in my body, I was like, right, like it was so interesting. So I really spent a lot of time like in meditation, visualization, just being like, all right, what if someone hands me a $10,000 check? What if someone hands me a $20,000 check? You're like, and how can I just say thank you for that? And assume that because I am breathing, I am worthy. I think that's something else too, is the connection between worthiness and joy. Like it's like we look at certain people like, oh, they must have done blah, blah, blah to, feel whatever they're feeling now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times we assume that people are so different than us when we see someone else who has like the fabulous, crazy outfit, who's, walking around in the grocery store in a ball gown, like whatever the thing is, and we're like, oh, well, she gets to do that. You get to do that too.
Yes, hell yes, you do. I love that. The picture that came up for me was like maybe someone, sits down to a meal. Two different people sit down to a meal. And one person's like eating it and they're just like dancing with it. And you can just tell they are like just totally in the moment, present with that meal. And you can see the joy all over them. And then there's someone who's just kind of like going quickly because they're on to the next thing and they're not even taking that time to like savor the moment. There are so many opportunities for us to experience joy without it needing to be the $10,000 check. Maybe it's that sip of coffee in the morning that just hits like just right, or that really good shower, or the phone call from a friend. I mean, there's just so many moments and we are moving so fast that we just let them pass us by. And so I think part of all of this is also slowing down and being mindful of the places that we can let joy in and receive that joy. Then capitalize on it. Like I love the idea of walking around the grocery store in a ball gown. I think that's so funny and so fun. I
Yeah.
love that.
I mean, have you ever had outfits like that where you're like, I don't know where I'm going to wear this? It's like, wear to the grocery store. Who cares?
Yes. There's a woman online that I saw recently, and she's like, "Welcome, it's another apocalyptic fashion show." And she's just walking in her hallway wearing all of the outfits. She was like, "When we were locked in, I wanted to wear all of these." And so now it's just like her online showing off her outfits. And I'm like, that brings me joy to see her experiencing joy in the clothes that she didn't get to wear out or, for whatever reason,
Right.
just wants to show off online. Yeah.
Yes. I love that so much, and something that I think is really fascinating is a couple years ago I was having some issues, but I think that a lot of it stemmed from the fact that well, I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia. That was one issue. But then also, so we had moved here to Texas, and my husband told me, he goes, "You've been working since you were 15. Like, just take a year off."
Good man.
And he was like, "Just relax. Like, if you didn't have to work, what would you do?"
Mm,
And I go, "I don't even know." And he goes, "Well, what would make you happy?" I don't even know.
mm, that part.
I know. And, it took me a hot minute to figure it out. I mean, that's how I ended up with the food blog, which is great. But then I'm like, okay, well, if I enjoy making my own tea blends and like making yummy food, what else do I enjoy? And so I think that a lot of women are stuck in this because, as I've been talking with a lot of women on the podcast, this isn't an uncommon thing where you just wake up and you're like, I don't even know what would freaking make me happy. What in the world? We are so disconnected from our joy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, like, one of our most important
Yeah.
feelings, and we were put on this earth to experience joys. Yeah, that was the second part of the question that I forgot to, answer earlier, a little bit of, like, how can we rediscover our joy? So, in Magnetic, one of the exercises is this joy clarity exercise, and you set a timer for 15 or 20 minutes or however much time you have, but the goal is you're gonna fill these 3 lists, and list number 1 is list 20 things that bring you joy, and if you don't know what they are, then list 20 things that you like doing or love doing, or 20 things that you would do if you knew that you couldn't fail or you just had a totally free day to yourself and the answer to everything you asked for was yes. And so that's a great place to start. And no editing on this, no justifying. It can be as delulu as you want it to be because, like, it doesn't need to make sense to anyone. It doesn't even need to make sense to you. It just needs to feel good. So, 20 things that feel really good, 15 or 10 to 15 things that you forgot that brought you joy that you did as a kid, or maybe you did during, like, the pandemic when we were all
True.
locked in, whatever that is, but then we get busy again and we forgot, we put the paintbrush down, or we stopped playing the piano, or we stopped gardening, or whatever it is. 15 to 20 things, or excuse me, 10 to 15 things on that second list, and then the third list is your abandoned joys. The things that you put down because you were too busy, or someone told you you weren't good at them, or you felt like you weren't good enough to do it, or because you grew out of that list and you're too old to be doing that, like that sort of thing, or a lady doesn't do this. Whatever, we know that we have all put things down in the past because of what we thought others would think about us, or because of
Mm.
what someone said. So list those. Now you have 3 lists of things that have brought you joy at some point in your life, and notice what patterns are showing up for you across that. And that might be a great place to point out, like, what might be missing a little bit in my life. And we don't have to go all in on adding all of those or even one of them. What would it look like to add 5% of one of those things into your life? And so, we don't get joy overload or something, even though like that's what I wanna overdose on is joy. Like, is it possible to overdose on joy? I don't think so. But yeah, that's a joy clarity exercise on, reminding yourself, remembering of what brought you joy, and then thinking of what can we do to add just a little bit in every day.
Yeah. And you're right. You don't overdose on joy, right? There are so many things that, you know, I can think of that bring us happiness. But for some reason, I think a lot of us are like, oh no, I couldn't. Yeah,
Mhm.
you could. Yeah, you could. And I think it comes from there was a movie years ago that like Julia Roberts was supposed to be a Southern woman. And she was like, it comes from years of telling Southern women to keep their expectations low or something like that.
Mm,
And which is funny, but I'm like, "Oh, that's not funny."
yeah.
So, same kind of thing. It's like, why can't we find joy? And another way of putting that is like pleasure in everyday things. And when you use that term pleasure, it's like a lot of people think it's just an
Mhm.
intimate thing. But really it's not. Like I can take pleasure in eating a delicious strawberry and, writing a journal entry. Sometimes that's like a really delicious way to spend my morning. I make a cup of tea, I journal, I'll do all the things, meditate. And like, what a delicious way to spend your morning. Because a lot of people are so running around and they're like, I can't sit for 10 minutes and meditate
Right.
or whatever. So really think that we need to change how we view whether you call it joy or pleasure, which I think that can be interchangeable. And like, how do we fit more of that in our lives? More of the good stuff. Nobody is like standing there with a clipboard, like, you've had your joy for today. What are we doing?
Totally. It's again like we make these rules for ourselves or and putting joy or pleasure on the back burner when it is so vital to how well you're going to do in life. Okay? If we want to talk about like achieving things, like the most people that achieve the most, I guess, in life or have the most abundant life from what I've seen, just like looking at patterns, they experience pleasure and joy and they prioritize it because it fills their cup. The fastest way to fill your cup is to be steeped in joy and pleasure. And if you have a full cup, you're just pouring from the overflow and you're impacting the world around you in such a bigger, better, more sustainable way. So I think that we put it on the back burner because we think, again, it's going back to like that worthiness thing, or because I mean, as women especially, it's like, well, yeah, sure, you can experience pleasure if you've like nurtured all the people in your life and you've like gotten all of the chores done around the house and you've
Right. You don't
worked
need
out.
dishes in your sink. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, no, no, joy and pleasure come first and then everything else, and that doesn't mean, like, we just F off and, like, don't live our lives, like but I I think that we don't even have to change that much. It's just an intentionality, it's a mindset shift of, like, I make my coffee while listening to my favorite song. I ensure that I'm gonna hear my favorite song every day. You know, I shower every day and I have a whole ritual that doesn't take any other time. It's just that I shower with the lights off and I bump Queen Herbie. And that is like, showering with the lights off, that's good for your nervous system. And Queen Herbie is just good for the soul. And like that is a huge like pleasure joy drop in my day that's taking the same amount of time to shower as I normally would. So some intentionality I think is really all that's required. And
Mm.
letting yourself the permission slip that you are allowed to feel good.
Well, isn't that the truth? For some reason, a lot of us women are like, "Oh, I can't." We were taught that we shouldn't brag. And oh, but they may think you're braggadocious or whatever. How about you brag? Like,
Yeah.
how about you brag about the stuff that like you worked really hard for and you got? And I'll share with people the story about my son and his Letterman jacket. So my son he was on the golf team this year, and golf in high school is considered a varsity sport. So I know, so he was the only freshman at his school who went to the tournaments, did the whole thing. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
asked me how many snacks I had in my cart. I know how to hack a golf cart, like, so nobody's business. And the email came out about Letterman jackets. And he started to say, well, I don't know if I was good enough. And like, my husband stopped him. I know. I was like, babe, you went to all the tournaments except for the last one, which was like a hurricane, which was for the people who were basically going to qualify for district. And I was there and prepared. And my son looks at me and goes, I really don't want to play in the rain. I'm like, oh, me either. Right. So I don't want to be here on a golf cart in the rain. So yeah, he goes, I don't want to play in the rain. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be out here in the rain either. Anyway, we ended up not participating, but for some reason he thought that he like wasn't good enough to get a Letterman jacket. And so I'm ordering one for him while he's on his retreat this week. But yeah, he was just so weird about it. And then I was like,
Hmm.
why don't you think you're worthy? Because you participated in all the tournaments, you went to all the practices, of course, and it doesn't matter. And I even talked with his coach about it. He was like, it doesn't matter what his score is, it's still a varsity sport, so he still qualifies. So, but that's just like one example of how we just mess ourselves up with this whole concept of joy. And I want you to share diet joy with everybody because I think this is hilarious.
Yes, diet joy. So there've been times in my life where I thought there were certain things that brought me joy that were actually so hollow. And there's so much of society that points us to things that look like joy that have nothing to do with the pleasure of life and like who we are. And so like for example, when I used to drink, I would think that like mimosas at brunch, that was peak joy for cherry. And I looked forward to it and I loved it. But then since I've released the hold that alcohol had on my life and I don't drink anymore, I see where that was diet joy. That was fake joy. It was this chaser joy because it wasn't real. It wasn't true joy at all. I wasn't actually feeling all of my feelings at that time. And it was stealing things from my life. There are places where society has told us to look for joy that actually take that joy from you. And that can also be in like validation outside yourself, external validation from others. From like the jump as young women and men, I think just as young people, we've been told like look a certain way, act a certain way. If you're popular, then like you'll experience joy and you'll have all the good things in life. And nothing to be said around if you think that you're amazing and you love yourself and you're confident in who you are, that's true joy. And so another, example of diet joy is the external validation we get from trying to look a certain way or act a certain way. And so now I'm just like constantly like looking for these places and I'm like, wait, that's diet joy. That's not going to bring you true happiness. Like the toxic ambition, going for like the next role, the next title, the next, and never being grateful for where you're at right now. And really like, is this where you want to be? Or are you just trying to look or have a certain title so that you get that external validation? Again, like where are you putting your energy into things that don't equate to true joy and are actually stealing joy from you? So that's kind of like the diet joy. Because we know, diet sodas, it's like they just make you crave more sugar. And it's like I've used to drink diet cokes thinking like, oh, this will quench, this will get my sugar habit. No, I just wanted more and more sugar, and it was like this chaser thing. And yeah, I want more and more joy all the time, but I get to be so satisfied now with the joy that I do have that I'm surprised and delighted when I get to experience new joys. And the cool thing is I experience new joy all the time because I'm like blasting out this frequency of true joy that comes from within. Anytime we're looking for joy outside of ourselves, I think that actually equates to diet joy.
That's so true. So true. And I think that no matter if we're talking about seeking external validation from people, maybe I know that I have in the past like thought that if I looked a certain way, I would feel a certain way, not always the case, right? So then I'm like, "Oh, but if I get, this outfit, then that means I'll end up feeling a certain way," and not the case. I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many different layers to this that unless you make it a priority, you could just be sleepwalking through life. And I say that, but I think that most people are.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, even something that makes me think about it, it's like someone who's in the gym all the time and they're counting their calories and their macros and they're so focused on this and they're like, well, no, if I'm very healthy, then that is what gives me joy. And it's like, actually, I can see where there have been times in my life, at least for me in this, where I looked really healthy, but I was so hurting because it was all about me looking a certain way and it wasn't actually about taking care of this vessel that I have, this vessel that holds so much joy. And when I let go of the grip of what I needed to look like to experience that, my workouts changed and the way that I ate changed and my body changed for the better because the validation was coming from within and joy that I was seeking was coming from wanting to take care of myself rather than become this thing to either be the fastest or to look the best. And so, yeah, that was another thought process of like we could be doing the same things. What's your intention behind it? And everything comes down to intentions, I think.
Absolutely. And you mentioned vibration a little bit ago. So I lived in California for a lot of years, right? And I think I was surrounded by a lot of fake spiritual people. This is why I call them, where it's like,
Mhm.
maybe they have the man bun or wear a caftan or be like, I'm intuitive. And the way they say that is like, I'm intuitive, like Spirit and I just, right, we hang out all day. And but really, like, there's a lot of fakey people. And I'm not saying that the people that I have run into, like, on my journeys in California, not all of them are fake, but I think that so many people are trying to be something that they're not, and that's never gonna make you happy. I feel like I have to yell this. That's never gonna make you happy, right? And I'm still on the journey of, like, embracing who I am, and it could be scary, especially to put yourself out there and be like, "Oh, hey, this is who I am," right? It can be really scary to do that especially if you have had experiences with people in the past. Like I remember not so much in high school, but more so in middle school. It was painful to be at school because I was so different compared to the other kids. And I just feel like I got picked on a lot. Like I was just an easy target, right? And even though we've had those experiences, it's like, it's interesting getting back to the joy. We are trying to, a lot of times when we have had those experiences, we're trying to check the box, right? I'm going to look a certain way and say certain things and do certain things, and then I will fit in, or then I will be happy, or then I will have, achieved A, B, C, and D. It doesn't work out like that. You have to love yourself. And I feel like that's part of what tapping into your own joy is. Like, me, I sing and dance in my garden. Okay, while I'm gardening, like I have my headphones on, and I realized the other day I was singing Prince. I'm in my garden and I'm pulling weeds and I'm just like having such a good time. But I realized I was like, oh my gosh, if I were a neighbor, I'd be like, she's kind of off her rocker. And it's funny because I really haven't met many of my new neighbors now. But like that is me entirely. And until we embrace who we are and figure out what those things that we're about that make us happy and lean into that instead of, again, looking at the societal list of like, oh, I should do X, Y, and Z. I don't think that we're going to be happy.
Mm, yeah, I agree with you totally on that. And it makes me think about for the people that are on this journey that are like, I don't know what brings me joy. And I can understand that it can feel like this really big concept. So I just invite you to drop the judgment that it needs to look a certain way or that it needs to feel a certain way and start getting curious about what would you do by yourself? Like, what if there was no one else around you and you couldn't fail and like, the answer is gonna be yes if you wanted to do it. Well, what could you spend your day doing? And that's, like, a really fun place to start. The whole, like, experiencing and, like, discovering joy journey, I hope that our listeners get excited about it because you're gonna try some things and maybe some things are not gonna bring you joy. Well, then, cross it off the list. But, that intentionality of just being curious and letting yourself try and letting something feel good and letting yourself dance in the garden and sing in the garden. I love that picture, Victoria. And it's just like it's so you and that joy came from within you and you didn't need anyone around, you didn't need anyone to see. There was nothing performative. It was just you just in love with life in that moment. Just so good.
It was a moment, yeah. But I also think that part of happiness is just telling everybody else to fuck off and really, like, you know what I'm saying? Just being like, "Oh, okay, you think I'm weird? I'm weird, right? You think I shouldn't do XYZ with my life? Okay."
Yeah, like
The older I get, the more I think that that's just the key to happiness. And the people who judge you, and a lot of times we're like, "Oh, what would people think?" They're not happy either, right?
no.
So they're not dancing around their garden. I don't know what they got gonna
Yeah.
talk about, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they aren't happy people. So why is it that we have such expectations for ourselves? Like, I could talk about this all day.
Yeah. I so agree with you on that, and it's like the people that are taking the time out of their day to judge you or to make you feel bad or small about something, yeah, they're obviously not experiencing joy because those of us out here that experience true joy aren't concerned with cutting people down. And so if you're going to take what that person says to heart and create these walls and these rules for yourself, I just kind of challenge whoever's doing that with like, why would you let that person have any power over your life when you know that they're not living a life that you want to emulate?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that
Yeah.
that's so important.
Boy, I experienced that in the corporate world with my last gig there. I was just like, I am okay, girl, I got a master's degree in finance. I mean, and I'm not the normal finance person, right? You're like, "What?" But so imagine having me be your finance vocal.
That'd be great. I would love it.
Right? But it was a different experience. I didn't fit in. And what I found that was so fascinating was the more I tried to be happy in my position and just be like totally me, the more horrible my managers got. It's like one manager and then a senior manager. And I just didn't get it. And so I think it's really important to set yourself up for having a joyful life. You have to get out of these shitty situations. Like that may be your job, that may be like something your Aunt Sally says. You know what I mean? It's like you can't be joyful and happy when you always have people being like, who does she think she is? Well, let me tell
Or
you.
letting that, like, affect you because 'cause I'm like
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and taking it to heart, yeah, totally, I agree with you on that.
I know. And when you're in it, like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're in a situation like that, I think it does start to squash your joy. And so, what would you say to someone who's like, I'm trying to have more joy in my life, but I have like this horrible boss, or I have a spouse that's really negative, or whatever?
It's where we gotta get clear on our boundaries of, like, what are you willing to take in and take on and collapse into yourself when you're holding space for someone, um and it's true, like, people that stay negative, they exude negativity, and that can affect us in a lot of different ways, and so either having some really clear, like, protections up around yourself, clearing your energy, but like you said, Victoria, I think it's getting out of those situations. I'm not telling anyone to leave their spouse. I'm saying if you are experiencing some strong negativity from them, definitely having that conversation. I think sometimes we don't even realize, like, there have been times in my life where I was just complaining and complaining, and I had no, like, thought process around, "Is what I'm saying affecting the people around me?" And had, um, friend come up and be like, "Hey, do you know that, like, you've been really negative recently? Like, are you doing okay?" And I remember at the time being like, "Oh, I didn't even realize that I was." So, we can give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't realize how much, their negativity is really affecting and or that they are being that negative. But, for those that are unwilling to change, I think, yeah, setting up those boundaries of access to us, um, and recalibrating the access they have in our lives. And for the spouse, I guess it's going to therapy.
Yeah, I mean, and marriage is hard to begin with. And one thing that I always talk with my husband about is that it's either you grow together or you grow apart. And so you have to be really intentional about that. And luckily for me, like I've changed so much since we got married, but my husband's just like, okay, all right, let's do it. Like, yeah, I could say the weirdest things and he would just be like, okay, yeah. Like he's the calm, chill person and I'm the Scorpio. Right. So I think it's too having someone in your life, whether that is like your boyfriend, your spouse, friend, whatever, who's grounded and doesn't get caught up in like hype and drama and all of that too. But I really think, after letting go of so many relationships and in my life in the past year, we don't even realize how much people stir up shit until we're gone. They're gone.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I just encourage people, if you're looking for more joy, you have to evaluate. and be ruthless. And it goes back to what you said about those boundaries, right? It's, sorry, babe, you don't get 24/7 access to me.
Totally. Or like, yeah, there are definitely people in my life that I'm like, okay, I don't want to cut you out entirely, but I know that like we're not going to be spending time together the same way that we did until you do some work on yourself. Or like with family, it's like I only talk to certain family members through Marco Polo because it's just like such a drain on my energy. And
Yeah.
so I want to see each other's faces, but I need to be able to like go into that conversation when I'm in an emotionally safe. I have the mental
Right.
capacity for it. Totally. Yeah. If you're
Right.
on this joy journey and you're just like figuring it out, taking stock of your relationships is essential.
Right. And I also think that taking stock of where you live and your environment is really important too. When we lived in Seattle, there's a thing called Northwest Nice. This is an actual thing. And it's where people who are in the Northwest, so like Washington, Oregon, like to your face, they will pretend like they like you and then they talk shit about you behind your back.
Oof.
Yeah, and it's Northwest Nice, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is a real thing," and I can't remember who I was talking with the old boss about it, and she was like, "Oh, it's just Northwest Nice," and I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," and then I did some research online, I was like, "Oh my god, this is a thing. I need to get out of here," like, I thought people in Southern California were fake. No. So, and I will say not everyone, clearly not everyone from that area is like that, but I could see that in a lot of business situations where it was like people had a certain persona, but then really underneath it, there's, and you can feel it, right? When
Mhm,
there's a vibe of like hostility or they don't mean well for you or whatever.
mhm.
So I just encourage people to evaluate what spaces you're in and how much energy you want to give to it. Because maybe if you found like a different like job or neighborhood that you live in or whatever it is, where people are a lot more positive, maybe you could be tapping into your joy more every day.
Very much so. Like, even where I'm living right now, if I felt a little bit safer to be able to, like, leave my house and go walk around my neighborhood, like, there's a lot of, like, stray dogs and I don't know, homeless people, and so it just doesn't feel like the safest place for me, so I'm just gonna trust my gut on that. But if I when I lived at a place where it was a nicer neighborhood and there was a sidewalk and I could, like, walk everywhere, that was significantly more joy in my life. Now I've like, I add in my things to like recoup that joy, but the joy of just being able to walk outside and experience nature, yeah, your environment definitely counts. So it's like paint that room your favorite color. Put that piece of artwork up, like romanticize your life is a great first step. And yeah, romanticize your life, that's like a whole like topic I think that we could like get into, but
Yeah.
think that's how you make a joy-filled life is romanticize it because you're worth it. Use your favorite mug every day. Get some, like, edible sparkles just to put in your water.
Right. Right. I mean, it was Einstein that said either everything's a miracle or nothing is. Well, hello, I want to live in the world of miracles, right? So, and especially if you're trying to manifest some good stuff in your life, it's like, why not? Why not decide that every day is going to be a party? You
Yes.
know?
Totally. That's part of why joy is a pillar of magnetic because the most joyful people, I just see like joy just like being magnetized to them. Like they get random gifts, they have incredible relationships, incredible opportunities. Like it's evident when you are in a joy frequency, joy is magnetized to you. And in the same note of like we can either look at it as a miracle or not, at the end of the day, like on my deathbed, even if they weren't all miracles. If I woke up seeing every day as a miracle, I have lived a miraculous life. And I would rather that, even if someone was like, those weren't all miracles, I'm like, doesn't take away the fact that every day I thought it was. And every day was a miracle to me. And that's what I think about of like all my, final moments. Was my life miraculous because I chose it? because I decided that it was
Um,
or not.
Dang, girl, that's such good perspective. I love that so much. So, yeah, I mean, you can, your life is however you make it, right? So we can either choose that we're going to be like, everything's fantastic or want want. And I think that people who maybe haven't done a lot of inner work, maybe who are just not very conscious beings, like they don't get that. We get to choose every day. So, yes, let's choose a really fantastic life.
Yes. And I think you were talking about this earlier this week that like our reality, it was you and April, I think, that our reality is created from our beliefs. And if we believe that we deserve joy and that we're worthy of joy, then we start to see things in our reality that align with that. And our reticular activation system starts looking for the proof points that that's true. And so maybe it is just starting with some, telling yourself that I'm worthy of joy, rewriting those stories. Or when you say I am worthy of joy, how does that feel in your body? What comes up first? And then dive in on that. Like, what story are you telling yourself? And why would you say that you're not worthy of it when it's literally your birthright?
Yes, girl. The number of times that I felt like, oh, but is that really for me? You know what I mean? It's like that whole worthiness piece is wild. It's like, why not? Why not?
Exactly. Literally. Why not?
Yeah,
Someone
I
told
know.
you that? Like, why are we believing what they said? You know the truth. You have the truth within you. Yeah.
It's kind of like money. A lot of times, especially spiritual people think that there's something about money that they can't like manifest money or the money's not good for them or like they've taken a friggin' vow of poverty or whatever. You do you, but like yeah, that's on me. And there's something about that that's really interesting because then if it comes to you, which it won't because you're not on that vibe anyway, but if something comes to you, you're going to be like, "Oh no, but I'm not worthy." We're all just making all this stuff up in our heads, right? And so if we're just making it up in our heads, how about we make up that we are worthy of all the good things that we want?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the craziest thing to me that we will, like, let our lives, our entire lives be guided by a really lame story that we've made up and these lame rules with no proof points when, like, we could just overthink about the good things. If you're gonna overthink on something, overthink on the good stuff. Like, I saw a post about that earlier today. I was like, "Oh, that's a good thought." Like, I don't wanna overthink anything because that's, like, takes my brain power, but if you're going to make up a story, make up a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, while we're talking about this same topic, I'm a nerd for quantum physics. And there was this experiment done, and these scientists figured out that the molecules, the atoms, the whatever, they act differently when they're being witnessed. So, how I look at it is so that basically says reality changes as we decide it changes and as we're like going on this journey. So, hello, witness the good shit coming to me.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I'm like, okay, everybody can witness that, right? So, yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm like, why don't we choose more joy? And before we break, I just have one point to make that I think that certain people, it's so foreign to them, the concept of joy, that it's almost scary. You know what I mean? Like they just don't have any concept of the fact that you can have a day, like you can choose to have a day where it's like freaking Disneyland every day, right? And I think that that is slightly frightening to some people because then if that is true, how the heck have they been living their lives?
Oof, yeah, that's a great point of like, wait, you mean I could have just chose something different this whole
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
And we're saying yes, and it's not too late, and it's still worth it. Sunken cost fallacy. Drop the old story. It's not doing you any good. Yeah, totally. I think that's so true. And then I think another reason why people might be afraid of joy is because some of us hold this limiting belief that if something good happens, something bad must happen. So if I'm
Ooh.
experiencing like this peak joy, then there must be something awful down the road. And that, listeners, is a limiting belief. That's a lie that we tell ourselves. And
Do you
it's a,
think a lot of people have that belief?
yeah, that the other shoe has to drop.
Mm. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And, I personally call that catastrophizing,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was telling my husband just last night that when we first got married, I was concerned about like tragic things happening. I really do think that it's like I was so happy. Like shortly after we got married, I had Cameron, and like I had a baby, I had a great husband, all of these things. And I think we can be so afraid that like what's going to happen, because it can't be good stuff all the time. Yeah. But again, that's perspective. It's like you can still have a joyful life even though things that aren't great happen as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big lesson that I learned earlier this year. How can I show up with joy in my life while also experiencing grief? And it's not easy at all, of course not, but it's also possible and true and I think worth it to experience the full like gamut of emotions, but also to know that like the sun still shines in the midst of this like grief that, it's just brought me to my knees, and the sun is still going to shine tomorrow. And so then like because of the relationship I have with joy, I hold on to those little kernels of like, all right, even if I can't feel this right now, I know that you're there and I know that I will again. And I'm going to hold on to that light to get me through this darkness.
Mm. I love that, Cherry. This has been such a good conversation. And I think it's going to help so many people because I know a lot of women who are at a point in their life. Maybe they want to make a change, but they just don't want to be at the same spot that they were yesterday. You know what I mean? So I think this conversation about joy could really help some people, and give them the permission, right? You talk about permission slip all the time. Give them that permission to say, I'm going to be happy, joyful, find pleasure today, even if it's like a random Tuesday and nothing special is happening, right?
Yeah. And I think it's showing, the universe as well. It's like, yeah, I can experience joy. Thank you. More, please. More, please. Bring it on.
Yes, exactly. What are your final thoughts for us today, Cherry?
Joy is your birthright, and you don't have to do anything to be worthy of it. And you don't even have to do anything to experience it. It's a mindset shift. How can you let that coffee be joyful, or that flower that you saw bring you a little bit of joy? Start small and then see how experiencing joy in one little area of your day starts magnetizing more joy moments throughout your day and your life.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for being here with me today to explore this topic. I'm going to put all of your links and everything below so that if people want to learn more about what you're about and about magnetic and that sort of thing, they can go straight to your links to do that. Thanks as always for being here and like having a juicy conversation with me. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me. I love our conversations, and you do such a great job, like, leading the conversation, Victoria, Queen V. Thank you for what you're doing with this podcast. It's really big work.
Aw, thank you. Okay, friends, make sure you like and subscribe and do all of the things, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.